On July 31st, we could hear a decision from a federal judge on a new law, one that would cut your SCE&G electric bills. It's been an ongoing battle for the members of the Tri-County Electric Cooperative as they continue efforts to try to remove remaining board members after allegations of financial mistreatment. 3 teenagers escaped a violent kidnapping on Wednesday. New evacuations tonight in Yosemite Valley as the Ferguson fire breaks containment and forces dozens of firefighters to shelter in place near Badger Pass. We are only halfway through 2018 and halfway through this summer, but South Carolina is already leading the nation in the number of children who've died in a hot car so far this year. The first day of school is less than a month away, and parents are trying to avoid the summer learning loss, or brain drain as it's called. The pesticide company Monsanto has been recently on trial for a case involving Roundup and its cancer-causing chemicals. A verdict has now been released. Julie Watts is in San Francisco with the story. A post online caught our attention here at WLTX. It claims sunlight reflecting off of a mirror started a house fire. Is that even a thing? Is that possible? Well, Nick Jones verifies. A record low high of 60 degrees in 1910. It doesn't seem that low of a number, but it seems very cold to me, 60 degrees. Can you imagine that right now? The childhood that I have and the things I've seen, because they're remaking everything. Yeah. That was big when I was a kid, and that and the Marvel movies and things like that. Look, I'm just saying the 80s might have been awesome.
The 80s temperatures are awesome as well.
Yeah, right? This week's Leo Smith's movie review is on the Mega movie about the prehistoric Megalodon, a 75-foot shark that used to live in the oceans all around the world. It stars Jason Statham and Ruby Rose. But does the movie have a big bite?
1818 is a fun day to have your anniversary on.
I think it's for guys that the women think about it because it's easier for us to remember simple numbers.
Yeah, 888.
Color me crazy, but I like all that stuff. Stay with us. Coming up next, we'll get you all caught up in the world of sports and give you a look at all the interesting costumes at the Comic-Con in San Diego this year. Stay tuned. Yeah, he'll get rid of all those nerves once he gets going, right?
Yep.
And as you get ready to send your children back to school, don't forget to snap a photo of them on their first day back in their school outfit. And people swear by it for its ability to fight off the allergies. We're talking about honey, and one local beekeeper shares his love for bees by delivering the golden nectar. I went out to see what all the buzz was about. Bees are probably my favorite creature on the entire planet, but more importantly, they're a vital part of a healthy ecosystem. So we got to make sure we educate ourselves on how to keep them safe and keep them healthy. About 20 years ago, Danny Cannon happened upon his late grandfather's old beehives on the family property here in Lexington.
I was out in the woods and some of his beehives still had bees coming and going in them. So, curious one that I am, I went and found some of his gear in the shed, put it on and went out there and started going through the beehive, just trying to learn a little about what was going on. I think I did this for a day or two and finally the bees left.
But his interest was sparked, so he found a beginner's beekeeping class and took it up as a new pastime.
And I kind of got hooked. The bees are fascinating and they're fun to watch them grow and develop.
But soon enough, he decided he liked it so much, it was time to make it more than just a hobby.
Beekeeping is one of those things that you can keep it small and have enough free time to do it, or you have to get large enough to make it pay for the time that you spend.
So he put all his efforts into building Bee Trail Farms. On his property, what once was a cow and horse pasture is now home to dozens of beehives, each little colony going about their daily business of pollination and honey making, seemingly unaware of the amount of good they're doing.
Economically, from our food supply, so many crops require pollination. A lot of cucurbits, like cucumbers, squash, watermelons, all those things, they have to be pollinated or they don't form. And a lot of fruits produce a better fruit if they're pollinated properly.
The dynamic of bees and beekeeping is so complex that even after 2 decades of running a successful honey business, Danny wouldn't presume himself an expert.
The running joke in beekeeping is if you have 10 beekeepers, you have 11 opinions. And very likely all of them could be accurate.
But he's certainly learned plenty. Enough so that he uses that knowledge to educate others on the importance of bees.
When you go and you talk to people, people know 2 things about bees. Bees sting, bees make honey. And then it kind of falls off drastically from there. But what I'd like folks to understand is bees don't, particularly honeybees, are not out to sting you. That's the last thing they're interested in. Honeybees will die when they sting. So they do it as a defense mechanism.
They really are interesting to watch. So much happening within such a small space. Assignment-driven and constantly busy, hence the term worker bees. And they're always working towards a collective goal.
They have a task, which is to make sure that their hive thrives.
And because of their importance to our ecosystem and our agriculture, we need to make sure bees are thriving. Is it weird that I love bees? Can't be that weird, right? My other two favorites are bats and octopus. Those are interesting too. Am I weird? South Carolina, and went on to become a news reporter in a time when men dominated that field. Here's a story of Tootsie. The road to the present is paved by the first experiences of the past, and often those firsts come by sheer chance.
It was kind of an accident, really, Chris.
It was 1965, and Adelaide Dennis Brantley, known as Tootsie, was unknowingly making history in the Columbia television news market.
I'm standing in the newly decorated Ways and Means Committee room at the State House of Representatives.
Women at that time could only do weather. It's really hard to imagine now, 53 years later, but women were only allowed to do weather. Talking heads were men.
But her journey to the small screen began years before that, with this crown.
There it is, all sparkly and shiny. I'd been in beauty pageants for a number of years and found that I could win money for scholarships, which I needed to go to college. So the Miss South Carolina pageant was the obvious thing to do.
Obviously.
And that is me. I think I was 18.
It was the only way she could see a degree in her future.
It was my ticket. It was my ticket for college. And I figured that out. You know, the dimples helped.
But Tootsie didn't just compete for scholarships, she won.
I won my local pageant, Monk's Corner, in 1959, and then I went to the Miss South Carolina pageant, which was in Greenville, and there were, I don't know, 50 or 60 contestants. Some tough competition, but I did win.
The title of Miss South Carolina in 1959 gave her that scholarship. Tootsie was going into her sophomore year.
$1,000 paid for a whole year at Columbia College.
And that led to this.
Mrs. O.T. Smith is here with me.
I don't think I would ever have had the television job had I not done what I did. It put me out there in a lot of public situations, and I found out I enjoyed them.
She spent just 2 years in television news, and in fact, she didn't even know these old tapes existed in the USC archives until I asked her to do this story.
I've been down memory lane in the last couple of weeks, and it's been kind of fun.
After TV, she wrote speeches and press releases for the governor's office before having children and becoming a stay-at-home mom. And then, at 51, she went back to school again to get her law degree. After TV was a whole nother lifetime of memories.
I've had an interesting life. I've had a good life. I've had some bumps in the road. It hasn't all been roses.
But she's still going strong.
I have 5 children. I have grandchildren. I still work part-time. I practice law part-time.
Every year, former Miss South Carolina winners are recognized at the pageant. This year was no different.
And Tootsie Klein, Miss South Carolina, 1959.
And she's happy to attend and thankful for the crown.
I'm very grateful to the Miss South Carolina pageant. They really gave me a springboard.
The crown that set the course of her life in motion.
Miss America.
Yeah, so I asked her advice after going through all that, and she was like, you know, it looked like she didn't really think about it ever, and she said, you know, keep your eyes open. If an opportunity comes around,
It's an inspiring story hearing
yeah,
something like that.
It's pretty remarkable, right?
Yeah, that was a good job. Well done, Chris.
Chris Delcamp tells us what we can do to save those images from the past.
We all have an old weathered photograph or two, something we've looked at year after year and considered throwing it away, but just couldn't bear to part with it. Although tattered, it was just too special. Well, there's finally a solution, and you'll be happy you never threw it out. It's said that a picture tells a tale.
This is one of my mom when she was little in this little baby carriage.
So just imagine how important that tale would be.
And then this is a photograph of my mom in a little cart being pulled by a goat.
If it was the only photo of its kind.
I feel confident that we don't have another copy of this one, and I'm sure we don't have the negative.
When Patricia Sinclair's mother passed away, she inherited the old family photographs, but their condition had suffered over the years.
It's seen a lot of weather damage and a lot of wear and tear.
She was almost sure that this photograph would be lost to history.
It made me really sad to think that this fabulous picture of my mom was just going to fade away into nothing. I had no idea that it could be saved.
Until she found a photographer.
Very good, very good.
With an aptitude for photo restoration.
In the case of a picture that's badly worn or torn or faded, we are able to rectify it and make it beautiful again.
Brian discovered his talent when trying to impress his girlfriend's family.
There was one particular picture that everybody loved, which was of her father in a fishing fighting chair fighting a big fish, and only one sibling could have that picture.
He secretly took that photograph, restored it, and made copies for everyone. He and his wife have now been together for 26 years. But in that act of grandstanding, something else came into focus.
That's good. It had so much meaning to them that I could really tell that it was valuable to do. And I realized this might be something good to open up to my clients.
And so it began. Now Brian and his associate have retouched, restored, and even pieced together countless memories.
We've had people come in with like jigsaw puzzles, water damage. We see a lot of pictures stuck to glass.
All memories that would have otherwise faded into the dust.
I thought it was really just going to be tossed in the trash.
As for the photo of Patricia Sinclair's mother, Brian was able to work his magic.
It is so rewarding to see how happy they are to get a finished product that just moves them, and as I said, sometimes to tears.
And this aged black and white photo, long faded into a sepia tone,
If you don't save them, then they're lost forever.
was given new life.
It just captures my mom and her spunk, and so it was really special.
And now it can continue to tell its tale. All thanks to Brian Dressler's need to impress a girl.
To know that that was the last one, then that makes it even more special.
Chris Delcamp, News 19, WLTX.
A local teacher has made it her mission to help one special needs student cross new lines, literally. Here's Chris Delcamp tonight.
In Chapin, South Carolina, a special bond exists between a teacher
Calcium, very good.
and one of her students. A bond that started here on this blue track with a pair of tube socks.
At first, it was a struggle. It was a big struggle.
Meet Lori Latham. She teaches biology at Chapin High School. She's running with senior Miller Ballard.
I told Miller that I had this crazy idea that we could start training to run, and he said, okay.
You see, Miller has Asperger's. He's also visually impaired. But Lori wanted to make sure he knew that those disabilities didn't have to slow him down.
Miller's an awesome individual, and I don't think that he has that many opportunities to show people how great of a person he is and what he can actually do. He can do a lot more than what anyone can possibly think that he could do.
She first got the idea while she was running a Spartan race with her husband.
I saw two males running. One was blind and the other one was his guide. And that just got me thinking that Miller could run.
So Mrs. Latham became Miller's running partner and guide, assisted by those tube socks.
I couldn't think of anything else better, and my husband just had these two random tube socks, or a pair of tube socks, and I just tied them together and looked at them and I said, oh, that might work.
The funny thing is, Lori doesn't think she's doing anything out of the ordinary.
I didn't see it as anything that was a huge deal.
Certainly not just a teacher spending her personal time helping a student do something he may never have gotten the chance to do. That's all. The training started out slow.
We ran 3 laps, and it took us a long time to run those 3 laps. So it was less than a mile, I'd say 17, 18 minutes.
But over time, the communication between these tandem runners improved, and Miller got faster.
When I first started running, I didn't run very far. Now I can run at 4 panels at a speed of 4.0.
And while Miller might be a young man of few words, it's clear that this bond goes much deeper than the classroom.
I feel like even though he doesn't necessarily tell me, I feel like he appreciates me. But I can see it in his face. I can see the joy in his eyes. And that's very rewarding as a teacher.
Recently, the pair even ran together in Miller's first 5K. They finished in just under 35 minutes. Now, they have a new target.
So, we need to start talking about training for that 10K.
What's your next goal?
Well, it was an underground hotspot in the early 70s, and ever since it's been a topic of mystery and rumor. News 19's Chris Delcamp was granted free rein to explore the world below Main Street in downtown. He tells us what's happening to underground Columbia.
It was built in 1912, and it was South Carolina's first indoor mall. But if you're even walking too fast, the white-on-white carved Italian terracotta sign that reads Equitable Arcade is easy to miss.
We have plans to try to put a directory sign of sorts in the front in the entryway, just to sort of help draw people into the building, because it's not immediately obvious who is in here when you walk by.
The building is now being renovated, making rooms for restaurants, shops, and offices.
I'd love to see a wine craft beer bar in here. Maybe a nail salon would be great in here.
But it's the basement of the arcade mall that often draws the attention of the more curious, where there's another world, a subterranean vestige of a failed underground nightlife. It was a series of bars and restaurants literally underground in Columbia, and today we have an all-access pass to Down Under Columbia to talk about what it was, what it is, and what it could become. From its opening, there are mostly just rumors of how the basement was used, horse stables and ice storage among them.
Despite the fact that there is good information about the improvements that were done, there is no indication as to exactly how this area of the building was used from 1912 until the early 70s.
And then a new idea began to take shape.
Here at Down Under Columbia, you had, at least temporarily during the 1970s, a place where you could go and have an experience, from live music to really good food, singing, dancing, all things that you'd expect out of a good restaurant and several good watering holes.
But what started out as an idea of fun and entertainment would not last.
Some people said that it was the fact that many people were not coming downtown as much for entertainment. Some people said that on Main Street there was at least a perception of heightened crime. Other people claimed that part of it was potentially mismanagement on the part of some of the proprietors.
And after just a few short years of operation, Down Under Columbia was shut down. 30-some years later, the entire basement level now wears the scars of time and neglect. This once lively night scene giving way to deteriorating floorboards, moldy carpet, and one broken down wood frame trolley car. But the Equitable Arcade, along with its infamous underground, is poised for change. With ownership changing hands in recent years, there are some signs of new life and hopes of bringing the basement out of the darkness.
We'd love to get a tenant in the basement. It's just going to come down to finding a tenant that wants to make that commitment to be in the basement and negotiate all the hurdles that are going to come with occupying it.
And maybe, just maybe, what is old could become new again.
I, for one, find it a fascinating journey into Columbia's past, and I love the fact that it still lives on. It lives on in people's memories. It lives on in essentially kind of a catacomb down here underneath the arcade mall. And hopefully, maybe in the future, whenever that future may be, you'll see a revitalized Down Under.
Chris Delcamp, News 19, WLTX.